You are listening to the All County All-Stars podcast, a show featuring franchise success stories in property management. Thinking about starting your own business and considering property management? Hear how our franchisees have partnered with All County to overcome obstacles and open flourishing franchises across the United States. Welcome to the All County All-Stars podcast, and I'm really excited today to bring Kim Miller onto the show. And Kim joins us from Fort Worth, Texas, and she's, I thought, one of the original franchisees because it seems like she's everywhere. She's at our meetings, she's talking, giving presentations, talking to other franchisees about her experiences. But actually, she joined in 2014, and she's here to tell us a little bit about her experience. Kim, what made you decide to get into property management? What were you doing beforehand?
Well, that's a great question. I spent about 18 years out in corporate America doing some project management, and then I was an elementary school teacher. I taught 3rd and 4th grade for about 10 years. One of the things that my husband John and I wanted to do was create some financial freedom for us. And so that's when we started looking into franchising. We knew we wanted to do some sort of franchise, but we weren't really sure exactly. Then we decided on property management and did our due diligence there. And then by the time we finished up our research, there was hands down All County was the way to go for us.
And I know 2014 has been a while, but what made you decide on a franchise model? Because a lot of people think, well, I can do this on my own, or maybe a franchise is for me. So how did you make that decision in terms of franchising versus just going on your own?
Well, that's my husband was actually kind of the one that he's like, he's not going to be able to be part of the day-to-day. So he goes, we want to be in business for ourselves, but not by ourselves. And so it's almost like a safety net. If I have any questions or, things of that nature, I've got some support to go to. And that was the main reason we decided to do a franchise instead of on our own, because they've already worked out most of the kinks, and I don't have to go through there. And it allows you to start making money much sooner than if I would have done it just on my own.
Super important. And that sounds like a bit of a transition. I mean, school teacher to franchise owner. I mean, what was that transition like? I mean, I have little kids too, so I can't even imagine trying to get a classroom of small people quiet, because I can't even get my 2 girls to be quiet. But how is making that transition from, having sort of a structured environment every day where there's somebody else that, helps you with a lot of the things, whether it's the administration of the school or, you're dealing with, it's just a totally different thing, right? I mean, what was that transition like going from teacher to franchise business owner?
It was actually extremely easy, believe it or not.
Really? In what way?
Really? Okay, so people do not give teachers the credit they deserve. They are basically running their own little business in their own classroom. They're doing so much multitasking, and you have your students that are your main customers, and then you have some noise. You have your parents,
helicopter parents, maybe,
and administration, like, go away, let me do my job. So it really wasn't. It was actually rather easy. The biggest thing is you miss the kids, but other than that, it was a very easy transition.
So you mentioned that you and your husband decided to do some due diligence on franchises, and you ended up with property management. What else did you consider, and why property management?
Well, with my teaching background, we actually looked into some different schools, like maybe Montessori, other things that were educational, but we've always had an interest in real estate. So that was kind of one of our driving forces. And I obviously love to learn. I'm a lifelong learner. And we realized that there was going to be a lot of opportunity, not just for real estate, but just the property management part of it, because when we were looking into that, it is actually at that point in time, a recession-proof business. And now we know it's also a pandemic-proof business. So that was, just looking at the, overall, what does this look like for us in the future? And it's just something we could see growing and that it would never really have a stopping point. Your limit, the sky's the limit.
Mm-hmm. And so you and your husband do the research, you arrive at the franchise model, and then you arrive at property management, right? How many other sort of companies did you look at, and what made you decide on All County?
We looked at about 3 or 4, and we were to the point, if you know my husband, he is Mr. Researcher. He will look at every little I is dotted,
every detail
every
of
T
everything.
is crossed. Mm-hmm. Yes. And so for them to get past all of his questions was a pretty big deal. There were a couple that got past his questions, but the biggest thing that we noticed in looking and talking to all the different franchisees is that All County was the most consistent. If you look at like all their websites, their business model, it just made more sense, because some of the other ones were like, oh, well, you can do this and you can do this and you can do this. And it just made your head spin. Mm-hmm. Where All County's like, they had had a focused, solid plan. And on top of that, their ethics really lined up with our ethics, which was huge. And we weren't just a number. And one of the things that during the research that we really stood out to us is that All County was more interested in quality versus quantity. And just because you're talking to them doesn't mean it's a two-way interview. Us with All County and All County with their future franchisees. And so when we did go and do the actual meet the team, it just all gelled. I was like, I'm in. It took me one day, and John's like, hold on. We got one more day. I'm like, nope.
He's the one that needs all his details in his checklist,
yes.
right?
I was like, nope, it's in. I'm the one doing it day to day. We're in. And so it we just have not looked back. We would do it 10 times over. We made the right decision.
And how does that work, as a married couple? So it sounds like you said that you were going to be the one doing the day-to-day. What's your husband's role? And, what advice would you give to people who, are couples who are considering maybe trying a franchise? Because, for example, I'm the franchise owner, but my husband is in a completely separate space, and the two worlds do not mix. So what's your experience been?
Yes, I'm actually kind of in the same boat. He's in corporate America, and the one thing that he is phenomenal at, which I did not have any experience in, was sales. And that was the one thing that I had to really work at and grow myself with. So I was actually thankful that he did not join me, because I think I would have used him as a crutch. And now I'm pretty darn good at it. And he did a lot of coaching. So when we first opened, you know how you can have your challenging clients? And
in every business.
Yes. And I worked with this really challenging real estate investor. But it was the best education for me. It was painful, but I learned so much. And he was just like my cheerleader, helped me through every step of the way. He's like, okay, you can word it this way. You can do this. Remember, so he's a great coach.
That's fantastic that you have a great partnership where you guys each have something that you're, interested in, but you can support each other. I think sometimes, with couples, it can go either way, right? Because a business is a big commitment and it takes a lot of time, especially at the beginning. How did you find when you started that process was, right? Because I think a lot of people come into this space and say, well, a franchise is just going to hand me the business. And, people I've talked to, I'm like, well, you still got to build business. They don't just hand you something that's making money. So what was your experience starting up, and how long did it take you to kind of get from zero and there was nothing to, you were making money, you felt like you were in a good place?
So we did start out with zero, but what I did before I opened the doors, All County has a plan. And so I got a little bit of a head start on the plan. And how I did that was I was just trying to finish up my school year. We had signed our contract probably the first part of February. And I was like, I just can't open my doors until I finish the school year with my kiddos.
Makes sense, yeah.
So we did that. But in the meantime, they have that plan that I started reaching out and doing a lot of pre-marketing before I even opened my doors. And so that allowed me to get a little bit of a head start. But then come when school was out, I opened those doors and we were going. And in there, you just do their marketing plan. It's a pretty darn good marketing plan. So between me opening my doors and actually kind of breaking even, starting to make a little money, it was about 6 months.
Okay.
But I also, I'm very determined. I'm very focused, and it does take work. It doesn't just happen magically, but they did give me all the tools to do it. And then when I'd run into, the amazing thing about All County is when I would run into my roadblocks and it was something specific, property management, where John couldn't really maybe answer that question, I had resources to call. I had mentors, and they're still my mentors. And I was like, okay, this is how the conversation went. What do I say? What do I do? And they were just wonderful. And they took so many phone calls. And so I'm kind of at that level where I've got some other franchisees that I broker that I'm able to now pay it forward. And I think that's a pretty cool deal to be able to do. And this franchise allows for that kind of growth, for you to take in their expert advice and just their experience. And then as you grow, you're able to help others grow. And that's almost just as much fun.
Because Kim, you're actually a Texas broker, and you are also the broker for multiple other All County locations, correct?
That is correct.
Were you the first Texas franchisee, or were there other people in Texas?
I was the second.
Okay, so pretty.
I was the second.
All right. And then how many other franchisees do you help with the broker responsibilities?
I broker my office and 4 others at the moment.
Mm-hmm. How is that going? Because I think all of these people, I would imagine, are people that have come after you, right? So they look to you probably for guidance and some things that are very specific maybe to Texas, or?
Yes. Well, Texas property management and All County. So when I started out, because in Texas you have to have your real estate license for about 4 to 5 years before you're even eligible to do your broker license. So we had to use
pretty long time.
Yeah. So we had to use an outside broker for a few years, and then I was able to get my broker's license. But the value that I bring to a lot of the All County franchises is that I know the system, and I can guide them along the way. And then I just have systems in place that I share with others with the whole system. And there are some specific Texas things that we need to do. So I actually got another phone call I've got to return after this for another one of my people I broker. But there, it's just, I have a system. I try to help them out a lot, and in turn, it's just a pretty cool deal.
And I think that is one of the huge benefits about not only just franchising in general, but also franchising with All County, because myself, I was a business owner running a real estate team, and I had to build the whole structure from scratch. And when I thought about adding property management onto my current business, I was like, I do not want to do that ever again. And I'm not that good at it. Like, I am the salesperson, right, of the company. So, having that structure and that system in place by people who have been doing this for decades is really a huge advantage, I think. So, I completely understand your success in that not only did you take the structure that was given to you, but you've created your own and are also helping others within the franchise system do the same.
Yes, I am. And I'm happy to do so.
So 2014, you open. It's now 2022. Talk to us a little bit about the ups and downs of that journey, because, with all businesses, there are challenges, and there are good times and there are lean times. What have you found in property management in the last, I guess that's 7-8 years? How has that journey been for you?
Overall, it's been amazing. I would say with any business, probably your biggest challenge are your employees, and finding good employees, keeping them, dealing with things that you really don't think you should be dealing with, because when you're dealing with people, it just comes up. But at the same time, with my past experience with my previous life, it prepared you well, it sounds like. It really did. And, life is just too short not to have fun and have a great working environment. And that's all I'm going to allow here. And the other thing that I love is that the buck stops here. And so you have control of your office and what that looks like. And yes, we do, like we're about to make some other good changes. And I'm excited about those, of kind of adding some different things, moving things around, because I don't ever keep it the same. And I know my team loves me for that, especially when we come back from conference. You always, are learning.
Have all these great ideas, yes.
Well, and that's another thing that's so great about All County is we all share with each other. It's like we're one big family, and we're here to help each other and support each other nationwide. One of the biggest things that when I'm talking to potential owners is they get me, but they have a whole nationwide full of things. Like in Texas a couple of years ago when we had that big old freeze, I'm like, we had no internet, no electricity, nothing. But there was another office in Florida that took our phone calls, had access to our database, and was able to still help our clients. And vice versa, we've done that for them during like hurricane season when the same thing happened to them. So, I mean, what other place does that? On a franchise level. And that's how close-knit we are as an all-county family. And that also just solidifies our decision of what we did. And, and it's still all about quality and not quantity.
So your office in Fort Worth manages several hundred doors, like around 400. And you grew it from nothing, right?
That is correct.
Yes. Congratulations. Property management can sometimes not be an easy business. So, what was that like going from, starting from nothing to where you're at now? What do you think contributed to your success?
Well, when I did open my doors, one of the things that I'm very passionate about is knowing how to do everything in the office. So that when somebody, we talked about the employee situation. So when somebody did leave for whatever reason or needed to be gone or whatever, I knew how to do it. So it wasn't as scary for me because I still know how to do things. It's just knowing enough how to do things. But I'm to the point where I kind of remember myself from a lot of the day-to-day, but then like I'm about to immerse myself back into it because I want to change some things. But I want to experience what those things are. I went out in the field. I did the inspections, early on. I did all the showings. I did, not all of them, but a lot of them. And I did everything that's happened in this business I've done myself. So I know what they need, what I can expect from other people. So I think putting yourself in people's shoes, then you're able to actually train them much better and get that excellence out of what you're trying to do versus mediocre. So if you do it yourself and then able to teach them how to do it and then empower other people to become leaders within your organization, I haven't even made this announcement yet. They don't know. But I'm about to empower one of my other team members. I'm moving them up. And they're going to be doing, I'm giving them some other opportunities. And that's another thing that's really cool is being able to provide some leadership training and really just empowering them as people. And with the employees, that's one of the things I love to do is they're not just employees. They're team members. And for you to have the ability to be able to make a difference in their life that way, not only professionally, but personally as well, and provide some of that leadership training for them and other opportunities.
No, that's fantastic. And I think you've been in business long enough where you've seen a lot of different things and a lot of people come and go, and you're at a place where you feel very confident in the system, in, the training. And it's a matter of just getting the right people on board the bus and making sure that everybody knows what their role is, right? And I agree, hiring is always the challenge, I think, because when you have a good system and a good playbook, it's really, do you have great people too behind that? Do you find, because you had mentioned, right, at the beginning, that when you and your husband were looking at this, you were interested in financial freedom and real estate. Did you achieve your goal that you set out with?
Yes. And exceeded it, I feel like. And we're just going to continue to do what we've just continue doing what we're doing, but with some twist and make it even bigger than what it is now. And we have some plans. And that's the other thing is Sandy is the most amazing mentor. I can call her up in a heartbeat and she will guide me through a complicated, opportunity and can help guide because she's done it all between her
she
and
has.
Scott.
She really has.
They've done it all. And so, yes, I feel very confident in our future and the direction we're going.
And just to piggyback off that comment, Sandy, the franchise founder, one of the things I think for me that was a huge difference in choosing All County over other property management franchises is you get access to Sandy. And Sandy has been in the business for decades. And this is not a franchise that has been started by some corporate entity that has never actually done the work, right? You are talking to a person who has been in the trenches doing all the things and has done all of them at one point or another, and has not only done them, but has coached other people successfully to do them, right? And, I have a standing weekly call with Sandy, and I mean, I'm brand new, I don't know what I'm doing in some parts. And so, having that resource and mentorship is something I think you can't get anywhere else. Like, you cannot get it at any other franchise property management company, in my opinion.
I absolutely agree with you 110%. It's just something you can't even put a price on because they are just amazing. They're so smart, but they're also so kind and have such big hearts. They're just good people.
And I think too, not only their experience running the franchise and helping other franchisees, but they have made it clear, I think, just in their culture that, like you mentioned, Kim, at the beginning, it's really about quality over quantity. And that was another thing that attracted me to All County as well, because they aren't just trying to, push as many franchisees in the door as possible and then just see what works out, right? I mean, they really are kind of selective and about who they choose. You also have to want it, right? You can't just expect them to do it all for you. They're like, are you willing to work? Are you going to bring something to the table? And if so, it'll be a great partnership. And in that case, I think we're at like 60 plus franchisees. So they know everybody by name. And that was one thing that really stood out to me, which is, other companies, are they going to know who you are? I mean, they might set you up with some coach or some person, but have they actually done the business before? Have they actually been on that call when you get an angry owner or an angry tenant or a really sticky situation, whether it's legal or, insurance or something where you're like, what do I do? You can have all of these people, salespeople or, coaches. Have they actually done the job? Sandy and Scott have.
They have. And just the job of property management, but also one of the other things that they're so brilliant on is just real estate investing. And some of the strategies that they use or do is just so fascinating and mind-boggling at times. You're like, wow, that is way cool. I've never thought of that. So it's just really just being in their presence and listening to them. You learn so much. I'm just like a sponge when I'm around them, and I just sit back and listen and try to take as many notes and put them in my head and write them down later and learn from it.
And I think it's I don't know if it's somewhat coincidental maybe, but here we are, you and I, women on a podcast, and we're talking about Sandy, who's a very strong female presence. I was not under the impression prior to doing my research about property management franchises that there were a whole bunch of women that were property management franchise owners. How has it been being a woman in this space? I'm very curious.
That's another really good question.
That's a loaded question, isn't it?
That is very, very loaded. A lot of times I feel like it's to my advantage.
Interesting. How so?
Because I feel like that we tend to be really detail oriented and we think of things differently. Now, there are times that I wish I would have had a male doing some of the sales for other reasons that maybe people would prefer to talk to a male versus a female. I have run into that, and that has been a challenge, but I don't let it stop me. Because if they decide to go elsewhere, well, they made the wrong person.
It's one person.
Well, they made the wrong decision, and they're not going to get the quality of property management that they would have gotten from me. So I kind of consider it their loss.
I agree.
Yeah.
And it's interesting because I was actually pleasantly surprised when I was going through the validation call period where they said, "Oh, well, we have," and they didn't say, "Oh, it's a woman you're talking to," but I was like, "Oh, I get to talk to another lady doing this," and I was like, I didn't realize there were a whole bunch of them, because for me, and it's very funny because I've done real estate sales for a number of years now, but one thing that we always were sort of dreading was calling vendors, and myself and my assistant, and both of us were women. And especially my assistant, she's like, "They're talking about HVAC systems, Tanya. I have no idea what they're saying," right? And so we did tend to get some calls where people were like, "Oh, little lady, you don't know what a compressor is, blah, blah, blah." But that's growth opportunities for you to go back and be like, "Well, now I know what I'm talking about. What do you mean that line is not connected, blah, blah, blah? And what about this?" And so sometimes they're kind of like, "Oh, you actually know how this system works." I said, "Uh-huh." Because we have to learn those things. And I think there is a little bit maybe of a hurdle with some people, just small differences, but I don't feel like it's really stopped me. And it sounds like it hasn't for you either.
No, it hasn't. It's one of my least favorite things to do, but I did it while I needed to do it.
Agree with you, by the way.
I would, if I didn't know the answer, I could figure out the answer. I'm pretty darn smart and pretty resourceful. But then that's why one of the people I hired is smarter than me in maintenance. So, when you get to that point where they love doing it, go for it, And so that's part of the growth that allows you to be able to not do some of those tasks that you don't enjoy doing as much.
I was just going to say, that's one of the benefits of being a business owner is the things that you're really good at. Just do those things and hire to your weaknesses, right? And I think being in charge of your own business and, calling the shots, that is a huge benefit, for sure. I don't think I'm quite as far along the path as you are, Kim. So
I think you are. Well, maybe we need to start our weekly calls.
I'm happy to go check out what the people in Texas are doing. So great state of Texas. Everything's bigger and better in Texas, right?
It is. And a lot more fun too.
I have heard. I visited, but and that's the other thing. So you get a franchise, right? And franchise locations can be in the 50 states. How does the franchise system handle specific state issues? Any insights there?
Well, they are always available if I need anything. But they really haven't run into anything crazy. Typically anything crazy they've already dealt with on their level. And then, I have legal counsel available to me if I needed something specific, but I really haven't had to
have a state specific issue. I mean, you're a broker too, so.
Yeah. And Texas is more of a landlord friendly state. And so we've got things pretty good here.
You do, and Virginia's not too bad either. So, and Maryland, because we're in Virginia and Maryland, but some other states, looking at you, California, where I'm from. Sorry, Californians, I love you, but sometimes it can be challenging there, and in other places. I mean, we're right next door to Washington D.C., where tenant laws are very friendly, and it's very hard to evict people because you really can't, right? So, but it is nice going back to the franchise support that most, I think, of the problems, and Kim, maybe you have a different experience. I feel like most of the problems are human related problems, right? Like there's some kind of issue with a tenant or a landlord, or, an owner, that has gotten a little snarly. And that I feel like is something that the franchise support, they've seen it all, and they've seen it multiple times in multiple scenarios. Would you agree?
I absolutely do agree. And one of the things that as you get further along in business, when you come across those owners that are not fitting into your all county ethics, that's when you kind of say, you know what, I don't think we're a good fit any longer. And it works out well.
And it's important too, because, I think when people start, they're thinking, I must have all the business and I have to take all the business. And maybe when you start, that might be a strategy that works for you. But at a certain point, and especially at the number of properties that you manage now, you can be more selective. And especially when, for example, and we've never had the case with us, but an owner that doesn't want to make safety repairs, like that's a problem. Like that's not something that's acceptable. So, I think having that wherewithal as a business owner to say, you know what, ethically, yeah, we could manage it, but I think you're probably better off with a different company, I think is a great position to be in.
It is a great position to be in. And I'm there and I enjoy it. And it's nice because, you know that saying that sometimes there's that 20% that take up 80% of your time. And when you really put it down on paper, is it really making you money? No. That's where you can use your energies to bring some positive things in. New
business, new clients. Yeah.
And that's kind of how I've been for a while. And it's really nice, I'm going to have to say.
So it sounds like you've got some big changes in terms of staffing, how you want to reorganize, you want to get down into the details a bit more than you've been. What do you see in the future for your office in Fort Worth? What's next for you now that you've been doing this for a while?
That's a great question. I kind of want to, I've been wanting to do these podcasts for a while. And and so this has been, if you could have seen me like 2 hours ago, because this is my first podcast, congratulations. No,
yay!
I think there's some fun to be had. And in turn, it can help build your business. But I want to bring some other of my networking and connections together. And I think it could be pretty darn interesting. And just, I want to do some more social media presence, just have fun. So, my word for 2023 is laughter.
Love it.
So we're going to bring some laughter into it, but it also... in doing that, I'm doing some other networking that I haven't done in the past and targeting some new audiences for business that I haven't done in the past. And I'm in the middle of kind of putting that together. And so it's in the process. And then I'm going to change a few things of who does what here and how we do them, and just create some other things going on. So, at 2 o'clock every day, though, we're doing something. We have an alarm that goes off. We're either doing some stretching or some dancing or something, whether I'm here or not.
Your office sounds like a really fun place to work.
It is. It's Elk County, Kim Miller. Why wouldn't it be? Life's too short.
So
you want to come work with me?
So funny story about Kim. There is an annual conference in September every year. And this is where I met Kim for the first time. And the funniest thing was, so I saw her on the list of the roster of speakers, right, at the conference. But I first saw her and her business card in the women's bathroom. So, Kim, I don't know if you want to tell the story of why your business card was in the women's bathroom, but...
Because I copied somebody else. They tried to beat me there. The Colonel. He had his in there first, so I'm like, that's not happening. I don't know how you got into the girls' bathroom, but my card's going in the boys' bathroom too. I didn't put it in there, but I have resources. So, and then I started doing it here at our office building. I put those little mints in there. I put random things. It's just kind of...
You're so funny. Guerrilla marketing. Honestly, the Colonel is retired military and owns a franchise in Colorado, right? I think it is.
Colorado Springs, yes.
Colorado Springs. We'll have him on the podcast as well because he's got a fascinating story as well to tell. But they were just too funny because they were like, we're going to get our business cards in. And we were wondering, how on earth did he get them in the women's bathroom? But all county, y'all, it's fun. It's fun. So we have a great time at the annual conference. And, Kim is totally fun. She was actually the first people I said, we have to interview her on the podcast because she's got a great story and she's full of energy, full of fun. It sounds like you're running an amazing business in Fort Worth, Kim. Thanks so much for being on the show. I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, thanks for inviting me. This has been a lot of fun.
Any last tips you'd give to people who are considering either just doing franchising and specifically like a property management franchise? Any tips for prospective franchisees?
For all county franchisees? I'm going to tell you, we did the research when it comes to property management franchises. All counties the way to go. There's no ifs, ands, and buts on that one. So, plus you get to hang out with me once a year. I mean, what else could be more fun?
True. Awesome. Well, Kim, thanks so much for being on the show, and we wish you much success as you do some changes in your business. And thanks so much.
Thank you. We'll see you soon.
We hope you've enjoyed hearing this episode of the All County All-Stars podcast. Thanks for giving us a 5-star review. For more information on how All County can help you start and grow an amazing business, go to allcountyfranchise.com or call us at 855-245-7368. You're only one phone call away from an opportunity that could change your life.